Hi everyone, we are group 3. I'm Innocent.
Debbie, I'm more Iminabo.
Today we'll be analyzing on social policy from the bottom up, abandoning female genital cutting in sub-Saharan Africa. I will be using GIP method for this analysis, that is group interactive participation, to analyze the Tucson experience in these 4 aspects: the community involvement, the community development, the role of the lay people, and the social capital that played out.
Since our topic is on female genital cutting, we just wanted to find out from you what you know about this topic. Yes, Emma?
I know that there's different levels in terms of cutting procedures and things like that, like different extents.
All right, Debbie, would you like to expand on what Emma has just said?
Yeah, as she has rightly said, is the simple definition to female genital cutting can be defined as is the partial or total removal of external female genitalia for non-medical reason at all. So many complications may arise from this practice. We can have pain, there can be hemorrhage, there can be scarring tissue, and there can even be death. So what are the facts, Mo?
The facts about FGC are that it is practiced in sub-Saharan Africa. It is also practiced in Egypt and in Yemen. Although it's come to Europe through migration, it is illegal in the UK. Approximately 2 million women and girls go through this procedure. About 130 million women and girls have undergone the procedure. The age group can range from 0 months to about 12 years. And the reasons for female genital mutilation is that mothers do this to show love for their children, is to ensure that they are marriageable, and we will discuss this later on. It's really for social capital. Mina, since we are looking at Tostan program, would you like to explain to us what that means and what that program is about?
Tostan is a Senegalese language that means breakthrough or out of the egg. This Tostan program is an empowerment program that started up in Senegal, and it was for rural women. It was originated in Senegal, and it's a form of a non-formal education that was started off for these rural women in their own learning style. And in the long run, this Tostan program led to the abandonment of female genital cutting in Senegal. What are the levels or what are the models of community development that led to?
Yes, as you can see from our picture here, we've just put the models for Tostan itself. So the model for Tostan as a program is human rights, respectful and inclusive, holistic and sustainable. But what Tostan did, when they went into this community in Senegal, they used a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down. They wanted to find out from the grassroots what was going in for the local women. So because of that, they did a health needs assessment. They went to find out from the women their felt needs. They also had a dialogue with the women, because the women are the experts of their own lives. And what that led to them taking on the empowerment approach rather than taking on the behavior change approach, because they realized that they were dealing with a belief system. It was the custom for the people. So they had to trade very well, they had to trade carefully. It was collective rather than individual. They used education to empower the women. So when they went in, they didn't go in and say, look, we're not happy that you are practicing FGC, but they went in with an educational program which started off by looking at problem-solving skills that were relevant, which were in context to the women. They started off by looking at things like water sanitation, baby clinics, and then with continued education, they went on to look at human rights. Human rights became the main issue, as you saw on the Tostan model. And with human rights, that's when the women realized that actually what was happening to them in comparison to urban women and to international women wasn't right. So this is where the idea of abandoning FGC came from. They concentrated on assets, the assets of the women. They looked at what they were capable of. They didn't just go in and look at the needs. No, they used the women's skills for the abandonment of social capital to go on, to go ahead. They looked at social injustice within the community. In terms of gender inequalities, it's only the women who were subjected to this, not the men. So because of that, as I said, it was inclusive. They brought in the men to make sure that all the empowerment that they were giving to the women, they would go home and the men would respect that, rather than to empower women, excluding the men, that wouldn't have been helpful. And lastly, on the principles of community development is the issue of power. What Tostan do? What Tostan did was they made sure that the women had empowerment from within, and that developed into, power with. So they shared power with the community. They did not have power over the women. They made sure that the power was shared. And through this, it was very important that they involved anyone. So participation for the people was very important. Innocent, how did they manage to do this?
Really, in our analysis, we tried to unpack 4 different types of participation. And the first we saw was the optimum form of participation. We noticed that actually the depth of the participation in terms of the stages of the involvement in the program and people that were involved in terms of the width, we noticed that the community themselves were involved from the planning process to the implementation of the program. And we saw that actually it is quite balanced in the sense that the involvement included both women and men. And you know that in African context, men's role or involvement is needed to actually give the women the voice. And the second one we saw was the issue of the interactive level of participation. Actually, it was interactive because we noticed very well that every one of them, both the Tokstan staffs and the community members, they have a specific role to play. This indeed gave them a stake into the project because the community, we are giving a role to raise some money for the facilitators and provide the space where the training will go on, and where the Tokstan provided part of the money. We went on to saw that the transformative form of participation played out, and this is quite empowering in nature, where the women were able to identify, they were empowered to identify and then resolve problems in their own way, the way they know they can actually do that. And we noticed that while doing that, the 4 elements of participation, 4 elements of empowerment theory played out: the dialogue, the knowledge, the practice, and the hard to pronounce word called conscience. So, we saw very well that the dialogue, while they were coming together, they were able to actually identify that female genital cutting was an existential problem. With the knowledge of the human rights, they were able to place the issue of female genital cutting as the health need that needed to be addressed. That actually made their consciousness about this to rise up. In fact, we noticed that these forms of participation was against the functional type or the representative type. The community were not just represented. It wasn't a tokenism type of participation where they needed to just inform them, look at what we want to do, or representative type, bringing women only or from different communities. Rather, everybody were actually included. This raised the whole participation or community involvement to the highest level, where we saw the self-mobilization described by Preeti. When you look at the community now actually had an independent initiative how to move about to make sure that female genital cutting really will be abandoned. Okay, Debbie, can you just tell us if the lay people really played a role? Did it come out at all?
Yeah, the lay people really participated, which actually led to the success of the program. As you can see there, we can see the headquarter sharing her experience. The women were also allowed to share their experience, tell their stories, how they felt about the whole procedure. And they also share the risk and complication of female genital cutting. The imam, we can see the imam over there, was one of the key actors that advised the Tostan's representative before they go into the community. He gave them unique strategies about what they're going to say when they enter into the community. The number one tips he gave to them was that they need to move into other communities and villages to start campaigning for good relationship so that they can still continue their marriage. Otherwise, they are not going to be able to, to continue to do their marriage thing. So that's number two. Number two, he also said if they get into the community, they shouldn't tell the communities what to do. Rather, allow the community to do, allow the community to, do not tell the communities what to do. Rather, tell them what other communities and villages has been able to do. Then number three is let them tell their own stories, then they can decide on their own what they want to do. Then the number 4 point he gave to the Tostan representative before they launched into the other communities were the communities knew the custom. They know it's FCG. The graphics and pictures and demonstrations you are going to use when you get to the communities and villages should not be graphic, so that they will not see their practice as a taboo or disease. Rather, they will see it as their own culture, as a culture. Do not condemn the quarters. Rather, appraise their positives. Thanks. More.
Yes, Mina, what would you like to tell us about social capital?
In this program, we were able to unravel 3 forms of social capital: the bonding social capital, breeding social capital, and linking social capital. Here, the bonding social capital, as written here, marital affiliations. This practice of female genital cutting gave the women a sense of belonging in the community and rendered them marriageable. So without this female genital cutting being done, they cannot have this bonding of marital affiliation. And also breeding social capital. When this practice was abandoned in their community, they went to different they went to other communities and neighboring countries, telling them the news about how, oh, they've abandoned this, telling their stories, oh, we've abandoned this practice and we feel you should also do it and the rest. Then also linking social capital. The imam and the Kota, who were the key lay perspective people here, were made to do presentations, and their presentations were done to the human rights people, the women advocates, and all these people came together to make this abandonment of female genital cutting a social policy. And all these forms of social capital, these forms of social capital together is a form of collective social capital. So more, please, what are the shortcomings or strengths and weaknesses of this Tostan program?
Yes, Tostan program was very successful, as we have just told you. But when looking at the whole project, we felt that in this context, in the European context, they should have given the little girls a voice. The little girls were not given a voice. But in the African culture, I think during that time, I think it's acceptable. We let them off for that one. And we felt that the authors did not write about the difficulties about setting up a program, like the time-consuming with empowerment approach. They didn't tell us any difficulties. It was all wonderful, and we know that it's not so wonderful. However, we have to say that they did talk about some problems that they encountered, because what happened was during the time that they managed to abandon FGC, the government, the Senegalese government, wanted to enforce a law to stop FGC. The community were not happy about that, and there was one of the cutters actually rebelled and said that I'm going to continue to cut. So we noticed that top-down approach doesn't really work. So we have to say that they did explain that. What are the implications for youth promotion, Innocent?
Really, for us as change agents, which I know we are, is expedient that we should actually understand that engaging the community in any community development is the only way to sustain any intervention or program. If really we are trying to address any social inequality, it is wise that once you are moving into the community, try as much as possible to engage the community in all aspects. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
explored the TOSTA programme very comprehensively. Have you got anything to say about, because it was worked so well, and it started to move it into other countries, how did that go? What do you think the learning is about taking this programme elsewhere?
Because the program has worked where Tostan started from. So the use of the lay people really, really worked because they began to campaign, and the mom that came out to say, before we need you to break into other communities as well so that they can join us to abandon this practice. So they both, yeah.
So and really we saw that what happened in Senegal actually stood as evidence for such a projects in other areas in such a way that when they now came in, instead of going with their program, because first of all, when they came with an initial program that they needed, the provisional program, before they now came up with the third program that led to the abandoning of female genital cutting. Now they needed now to restructure the program, since it takes time initially. So they knew that since they are actually targeting the need of the community, which is one of the principles of community involvement, trying to align with intention. They knew actually that intelligence is not the only thing needed in community development. You needed to actually add your mind and your heart to love the people, to be able to go with their initiative. So they needed now, moving to another community, to that is, keep aside the first initial program they had as Stockton, now to continue with the human rights and woman health. And that actually happened, although yet to be evaluated to see whether the outcome will be the same as what happened in Senegal. Because in Senegal, we saw that the provisional program that came in that tried to empower the community, giving them some incentive to begin up a few things to do for themselves, was something that made everybody, made it all inclusive. People started coming in. Now we are still yet to see if that will actually affect the progress of Toxan in other communities that is yet to be evaluated.
I don't know how familiar you were with this content of this case study before you started the case study, but how did it affect your attitudes to female genital cutting? Did you have any personal response to what you read? And how did you manage that?
Well, I come from the southern part of Africa, so we do not practice any of this. I got to know about this topic when I came to England, and I know that in England it's illegal. But when this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this article, because I had heard so much about it. It's almost like it's something that's never spoken about. So I wanted to learn more about it and to find out more about it. Starting from the beginning, I think I didn't understand it, to be honest with you. I was like, oh, it's them, it happens to them, there was that. It's far away, it never affects me because I didn't grow up with it. But reading the article and going out to find out more about Tostan itself and looking at the videos, I realized that actually it is quite a serious problem. It's affected the way now. I think if I was to meet a woman who has gone through that, I think I would deal with them differently. I would be more empathetic. I would be more understanding of what they've gone through. Previous to that, I was just like, oh yeah, okay, so it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal. It does affect women in a bad way.
Anybody else want to offer there?
Okay, I've known about it before now, but I didn't actually know that there was a program that was actually that started up somewhere to stop this process. And reading about it and knowing about the program, I was really happy and intrigued and wanted to know more about this program.
Thank you very much.